Perspective on Florida Gateway College Television is sponsored by Potash Corp of White Springs. Potash Corp, helping nature provide.
Hello everyone and welcome to Perspective. This is a public affairs presentation of Florida Gateway College. My name is Mike McKee. And fall is in the air, and that means it's time for the annual United Way of the Suwannee Valley fundraising campaign for the year. With me to discuss this year's campaign is the Executive Director of the United Way of Suwannee Valley, Rita Dopp, and Stephanie McClendon, who is the incoming President of the Suwannee Valley United Way. We'll talk to both of these ladies about their expectations for the coming year. We'll do that when we come back. Don't go away.
Being a registered nurse is a rewarding job. But if your career goals have you looking for more, Florida Gateway College can show you the way.
As a nurse, I love to help people, but I wanted to go further.
With our Bachelor of Science nursing degree, RNs have the opportunity to increase their career options and income earning potential.
Now I've got more choices, and the extra money isn't bad.
Start your journey today at Florida Gateway College.
September 10th is the official kickoff for the campaign for United Way of Suwannee Valley. To talk about the upcoming campaign is Rita Dopp, the Executive Director of the United Way of Suwannee Valley, and Stephanie McClendon, the President of the United Way of Suwannee Valley, who also represents First Federal Bank. We welcome you both to the program.
Thank you.
Rita, first of all, this has been, do you know how many this is for you? I mean, have you counted how many?
17?
17 years, wow. That's a lot of campaigns that we've been through, different themes. What's this year's theme?
Oh, we're going to have a great time with this year's theme. The Communications Committee, knowing that we were going to have some movies coming out this year that had to do with superheroes, picked right up on it and went with a superhero theme. So we're going to be celebrating hometown heroes. And I think everybody in our audiences, as we progress through the campaign season, will have great fun identifying with those people that have been recognized as being a hometown hero, either with their company, for the campaign that their company does, or with their agency, or volunteers in our agencies.
You know, when you think about a hero, it could be a bag boy that makes a contribution as little as, 50 cents a paycheck. You don't have to be that heroic, save the baby from a moving locomotive as they did in the old days. It could be as little, just in your mind, what a hometown hero is can be anything.
Oh, absolutely, because we've got people who really are advocates. I mean, our whole theme is always to give, advocate, volunteer, and sometimes it's just that person in a place of business or within one of our United Way agencies that is just the person who's the advocate, the inspiration, the reason why people contribute.
Now, we've got 22 agencies. For those of you who are unfamiliar with United Way, and I can't believe anybody would be unfamiliar with the United Way, we've got 22 health and human service agencies that take care of those who are in need. Talk about what end to the other end. I mean, we've got from babies to seniors, correct? We cover everything in between as well.
Correct. We have everything from, if you look at it like you mentioned, Mike, we've got our tiniest little residents at Happy House, and we've got our citizens with disabilities at the ARC North Florida over in Suwannee County and CARC here in Columbia County, and then we've got senior services programs through Suwannee River Economic Council and our Columbia County Senior Services. So and then all the after school programming, Annie Maddox, Boys and Girls Club, Suwannee PAL, it's all of our services really are designed to support our families that really need our community support to make ends meet and to be able to remain stable.
Now, Stephanie, these groups are not that some of them are funded through county funding, some are funded through state, or some are done through the federal government. But that's not always enough to serve all of the need, and that's where United Way comes in, right?
Absolutely. They're able to leverage with the funds that are given to apply for additional funds and grants. So without United Way's involvement, some of these agencies would not be able to exist.
Now, Stephanie, you and First Federal Bank here in North Florida have been extremely active. Keith Leibfried has been extremely supportive of not only the bank making contributions, but allowing his employees. Talk a little bit about the bank's involvement and specifically your involvement, because you've been in this a long time.
Absolutely. That's one key thing that First Federal wants to be known for. One of our core values is community involvement, instilling that in our staff as well. I've been with First Federal for going on 17 years now, and that from day one it's always been key. Keith inspires all of us as employees to be involved, to contribute, to give back, not only with our donations. We have a First Federal Way where we can give to United Way, other organizations through our payroll, but also of our time. We're all required to give back on a monthly basis and giving, and so we see that that's part of who we are at First Federal, and we want to do it from the heart. We're passionate about serving the communities in which we work in.
Well, how cool is it to have the support? I've got that support here with our new president, Dr. Lawrence Barrett, has allowed some of our employees to be a big part of the United Way. But it's like a weight off your shoulder in order to say, you know what? My boss says it's okay for me to do this because it's the right thing to do, and that's what Keith has done.
It's amazing. We have his support. Anytime that I want to be involved or I have to do an event for United Way, he's very grateful. He's always appreciative, and he's fully supporting of it to go and do whatever I need to do to be there and to represent First Federal. But he knows also too that I'm passionate about it and giving back.
Rita, I don't mean this to be a First Federal Bank commercial, but they've stepped up to the plate for the United Way Building Committee. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, well, certainly the bank has been instrumental in helping us in two ways, because Jim Moses has chaired the building committee since its inception, and
which has been a long time. We've been kind of a nomad. We've been in the old Montgomery building. We've been at the mall. We've been at a house on Hernando Street, which has been not the greatest, but it's been free. I mean, so you can't really complain about having no rent. But talk about where we are right now.
We are currently located in a building that's owned by the City of Lake City. So we are very, very grateful that the City of Lake City has allowed us to remain in that building. It is a building that was formerly a house, though, so it wasn't wired to be an office. It isn't set up to be an office. It's lacking in terms of client confidentiality when we have clients coming into our office, and we've got staff that are either a 2 to a room or a 3 to a room to try to function. So it's not very good for an office building. So Jim Moses has just really led the building committee now for, like you said, a number of years to get it to the point where a building was finally selected. And then naturally we put a proposal out to financial institutions, and First Federal was very generous in offering us terms that everybody was extremely delighted to be able to secure a loan.
Yeah, this building fund was started in, I think, 2000 or 1999 or 2000, because the powers that be back then, and it changes. The leadership at United Way changes every year. Since this is Stephanie's presidential year, but they wanted to do a building fund, so they had a fund specifically set up for the building, and then 9/11 happened.
Correct.
And a lot of money was earmarked to the survivors and the Red Cross. So the focus was not on the building anymore. It was just getting by and helping the people that really needed it at the time. So now we're in a little better footing, and we've taken the leap of faith, and we're going to be in a building off. I think, can we announce it, or?
Well, we will be.
Maybe let's just save it.
Okay.
For the kickoff.
Okay.
Which is coming up on the 10th of September. Right out here at Florida Gateway College. Now, Stephanie, part of being the president of the United Way, you gotta motivate people. Mm-hmm. How has that been for? I mean, the kickoff is really the key, but you've done some behind the scenes thing. You've got a team together that's going to help you raise your goal.
We have an amazing team. I think that's what it's all about, reaching goals, and if you can inspire and they believe in the mission, and we have a great team. Our general campaign chair is Gary Godwin. He does a fabulous job. We have Chris Dampier, who helps us chair the Columbia County, Pam Cochran, who Suwannee County chair, and Tom Moffis for Hamilton County. And all of them are leaders, they're inspired, and they believe in United Way and what it does for their community.
Now we've got kind of a lofty goal. What is the goal? Are we going at $500,000, or can we announce that? Let's announce that right now. I know we're going to announce it at the kickoff, but
Absolutely proud to be able to announce that. We all voted and decided to set a goal of $510,000 for this campaign year. We knew that it was kind of steep, but we didn't want to set our expectations low. We know that our communities, they need these funds, these organizations, to continue to take care of others. So we have decided again to set that goal at $510,000.
now Rita, let's talk about we need the money. Yeah, obviously there's a need. How do we determine what the need is? I know that there's a committee called allocations. Talk about that process, because I think people that have their money want the money to go where it's needed the most. And so how do we arrive at that decision of who gets what and how much someone gets?
That is a really good question, and so I'm glad you asked that, because a lot of people really don't understand that all the money that we raise in our United Way service area stays right here in our service area. We do pay 1% in dues to the national organization United Way Worldwide. We really get our money's worth out of that through all the national relationships. So all the funds that are available to us to allocate out that are non-designated contributions, the allocations committee gets a notebook once a year, and it has every one of the agency budgets in it. And then they have meetings for 2 full days, and they have presentations from each one of the agencies requesting funding, so that every agency is really considered in terms of what services are being made available through them, what are the costs associated with those services, are there other resources that we can help them achieve additional resources or leverage funds, to make sure that our scarce community dollars are being distributed amongst our United Way agencies for the greatest possible good.
Now, and this committee is made up of volunteers. It's not someone in the United Way. I mean, it's someone from the United Way office there that kind of guides the discussion in where the funds are needed. But these are people who may be your best friend, and so you've got to make a presentation of where the money is needed. So you've got to make your best presentation for the funds.
Absolutely. Each agency makes their presentation. Basically, I may be there as staff, but I don't have a vote. I'm there taking minutes and ensuring that everybody's got the appropriate information that they need to make the best decisions. But it truly is a committee decision, and there is one individual on that committee for every agency.
Now, Rita and Stephanie, you might be able to answer this too. We normally get more requests for more money than we have, correct, every year?
Absolutely, because the needs always exceed the resources available. So again, it's just that constant process of saying how can we take what is available and put it to the greatest possible use to maximize our community resources.
I want to talk about the Homeless Coalition. This is an organization that is run out of the United Way office. Talk about, a lot of people don't see it. A lot of people don't see that middle school kids are going home with backpacks full of food because there's not any food in the house over a weekend. And the only good meal the kids get are at school. So there's a food bank that is operated through United Way as well, through the Catholic Charities. Talk about the homeless first, and then we'll talk about. I mean, it's kind of depressing to hear all this, but there is a need, and you need to address the need, and now's the time to do it.
Well, I think that those are also really good points, because so often when we do the community fundraising campaign, we do focus on the campaign. The campaign is about support for basically our safety net of services, but actually United Way brings in a lot more to our community than we can raise here, and we bring that in through grants that we can use to assist people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness, because these are the people who are serving us every day in our community. There are child care workers, there are hospitality industry workers. They could be any family that basically one thing happens and then you can't pay your rent. There's always more need, again, than there are resources, but United Way fulfilling the role of the local homeless coalition allows our agency to receive funds, and for a number of community agencies, our domestic violence centers, Volunteers of America for permanent supportive housing, Another Way for permanent supportive housing. So it brings in twice as much as we raise locally, whether it comes to us or it comes to other agencies, because we may have a visual image, mental image of that homeless person, but what we see in our office is that mom and her children who are living in their car because they don't have a place to go.
Now, and that could, one thing could tip the scale to homelessness. Now,
Exactly.
I mean, I know that there are some times where families, and we've had some just terrible heat this summer, and some families don't have money to pay the electricity bill. And so they lose power, and the safety net of the United Way can help make that power payment, correct?
Correct.
So there are things that, you're not alone out there. This safety net is there for a reason. Talk about that. I mean, like Catholic Charities will help turn a power back on if someone has lost power.
Yeah, depending on, all of this is always dependent upon the resources and the limitations on the resources that are available, but for sure you're absolutely correct in that, especially when it's going to, a lot of people even in their lease, it's required that they keep their utilities on. So sometimes their leases, even their housing is at jeopardy if they don't keep their utilities turned on.
So there's a lot of hopelessness that comes into your office, and your people do a wonderful job in counseling them on, let's work this out, let's make this work, and they do it every day.
They do it every day.
And I think a lot of people out there may be sitting at home going, that doesn't happen here. Unless you see it, and I encourage folks to visit with the folks at the United Way and see what they deal with on a daily basis, and because when times are tough, the United Way office is busy. Let's talk about the food bank. Now, this is another thing when a lot of people, and I've talked to Suzanne Edwards about this numerous times, it seems like we only want to help people at the holidays, but there's a need all year long.
There is definitely a need all year long, and the association between the food bank and United Way is clearly, this is one of the first community needs that our United Way recognized since the 2000 mark, where we wanted to bring a food bank to our community. Did not want to run a food bank, but we wanted to make sure there was one here, and we knew that we had an agency that could assume responsibility for it, and it has grown tremendously. It's now even in a new bigger building. And there is a need all the time, and people do. It's the same thing with disasters. People come forward and they want to help. We need to have people trained all the time, so we need people always to call our office and say they would help in a disaster. And the same thing with the food bank. People need to be able to do food drives whenever during the year to assist the food bank, because there's always that demand. In fact, we've just finished one of the biggest demand periods of the year when all the children are home who normally depend on the free and reduced price lunches, and they're home for the summer.
Yeah, it's difficult. Stephanie, again, you've been part of the United Way for many, many years. What touches your heart when what keeps you hopeful that the United Way is making a difference in North Central Florida? Just the stories you hear, or coming to see how people have been helped? Because I think that touches me when I hear of a family that has been helped by United Way, and if it wasn't for United Way, they don't know where they would be. That kind of does it all for me.
Absolutely, just seeing the testimonies, and the young ones really touch my heart. And what you said earlier, a lot of times you can blind your eyes to it and you think it's not in your community, but getting involved and really seeing that there are many in your local community, many young ones in your school that they don't have the food at home. Some of them don't even know where they're going to put their head down at night. And seeing how United Way can go in and help those young ones and make sure they have food to eat and they have someone to rest their head, it keeps me inspired to say, if I just can help one child, one more person, it keeps you going every day. It's just a wonderful feeling to know that you've helped put food on someone's table or maybe a pillow under their head at night.
Well, Rita, I talked to Paul Crawford and from Guardian Ad Litem, and they were talking about the need for volunteers. They've got a need for 160 volunteers in a program that helps look out for the best interest of a child that may be going through a court procedure where they've been taken out of the home because of unsafe conditions. Now, that's just another part of what goes on at the United Way.
Yeah, that is a big part, like you mentioned earlier, in terms of what we do when it comes to the agency funding, because most all of the funding that our United Way is able to provide to our community agencies honestly is a drop in their bucket, but it's the drop that they have to get the bucket. And that's true with Guardian Ad Litem Voices for Children, which is the program that you all talked about on your program. But their grant requires a certain amount of matching funds that they have to receive the larger amount, and the needs right now in our area for Guardian Ad Litem is huge because they've got this really large caseload, but they've had this huge influx of additional cases, and all these children, like you said, it's 160 additional children that they do not yet have volunteers to assist.
And unfortunately, that 160 is, or at least half of that is in Columbia County. I mean, they serve, I think they've served 16 counties in north central Florida, not just Columbia, Hamilton, or Suwannee. They go all the way to the Panhandle. So, I mean, it's a terrible thing, but what are these kids to do? We're looking, you know, these kids need to be represented in court. They need to have someone that can, you know, even if there's no grandparent involved, and there are a lot of grandparents involved, but if that grandparent represents one side of the family or the other, you got to have someone that's going to be impartial for the best for the child. So that's one of the programs. I'm looking at American Red Cross. We don't think about the American Red Cross until there is a disaster, and there's either a hurricane or a depression somewhere that causes flooding. There's tornadoes that strike. You've seen it all in the years that you've been at the United Way. So there's always a need for Red Cross volunteers and Red Cross training. I'm looking also Annie Maddox Recreation Center, Boys Club of Columbia County. We had a young man on here that was talking about he didn't know what he would do. Granny couldn't let him go home, so that's another safety net. There's a lot. The college helps to publish a brochure of all 22 agencies. If you want to find out anything about what the United Way does, these are just the agencies but it's much more. Talk a little bit about what more the United Way does. If you get the food bank, Homeless Coalition.
Well, of course, you recently did a program on our newest initiative, which is Reading Pals, which was, again, a grant-funded initiative that allows us to hire a Reading Pals coordinator specifically to provide literacy tutoring to children in kindergarten so that we can help with children who come into the school system and they're already deficient in reading before they even start their school career, to help them really get up to speed over the course of that first year of school. So it'll be a one-on-one relationship, just an hour a week, and I really would ask that anybody willing to put in 1 hour a week to help a child begin their school career to please contact our office.
Yeah, it's a great program, and again, we talked to the coordinator of the program and talked about how difficult it is for a kindergartner that isn't at grade level reading. They fall behind, Stephanie, and so now this child is behind in first grade, and so on and so on and so on. So if you can make that change, make that effort. Listen, we talk about we want your money, and obviously the United Way can use all the funding they can get. We need $510,000. If your company would like to do a campaign, read it. You have what we call a speakers bureau. Talk about what that's all about.
Okay, we have a lot of companies that do a great job and just have us come in, and even yesterday one of our local businesses that happened to be Belk in the mall and come on out, invited me to come out to do one of their morning meetings. 10 minutes, give us 10 minutes. And we do have a speakers bureau, either a member from one of our agencies or some of our volunteers in the community that are very active with United Way will come out, and typically we show the video that's produced by the college.
Which we're working on.
And that's 4 minutes, and if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a 4-minute video just really basically tells it all, and then we're just able to make some comments, answer any questions the group has, and invite people to contribute in whatever way they can.
Well, Rita, I'm on a fixed income. I'd love to be able to give you some money, but I can't. What could I do, though?
Oh, there are so many volunteer opportunities. So again, our motto is give, advocate, volunteer. So, people who give, and you mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily large gifts. The bread and butter of our United Way are those people who they plug away, they give something each week from their paycheck. If we were fortunate enough even to have all of our citizens that are fortunate enough to hold a job to give 50 cents a week, we'd be well over $1 million United Way. So it's not that it requires a lot, it really requires everybody doing a little and it all adding up. But certainly for those who don't feel that they can even give a little bit, then certainly there are always the opportunities to encourage other people to give, or their businesses that they frequent to give, or to personally volunteer in any one of the community agencies or in our programs.
Now, Rita, you mentioned 50 cents a day from everybody in the community would be well over $1 million. And I remember a United Way executive director before you used to say that 50 cents Coke would, well, I don't know where you can get a 50-cent Coke anymore. So, I mean, say $1 Coke could get us over $2 million.
Absolutely.
So, give up something that you like. I don't want to make Starbucks mad at me, but give up a Starbucks a week, and that same kind of revenue could go to helping a child who may be struggling with hunger, child who may be struggling because their parents are no longer in the picture, parents who maybe can't have, may have to have childcare in order to get a job to support their family by going to Happy House. So there's a lot of things that this United Way agency does, and I guarantee you, if you want to be a part of it and you take a tour of the agencies that the United Way focuses on, you too will be a part of it, and you might even be an extraordinary volunteer for the organization. If you'd like more information about the United Way and the upcoming campaign, which starts on the 10th of September, and we welcome you to come out to the kickoff. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to recognize some hometown heroes. Kids, I think, are going to be dressed up in superhero outfits. I think maybe we can get Rita to dress up as Wonder Woman, because I think some people refer to her that way, that help with the United Way. But that's the number, 752-5604. UnitedWaySuwanneeValley.org is the website. Ladies, thank you so much for being on the program. We appreciate the time and wish you the best of luck with the upcoming campaign. And thank you for watching. And please give to the United Way. I'm Mike McKee. So long.